Let's start the show.
Welcome back to another episode of What the Fuck Did We Just Watch? That's Mame.
That's Bug. We talked about how much we like Mr. Ballen.
Oh, Mr. Ballen.
Who is also a creator on YouTube who we love.
Him delightful. He tell good stories. Why am I talking like this?
I don't know. We're fascinated by all things cult. Not occult, but cult. Things like Jim Jones, David Koresh, like that kind of thing.
Yes.
They're so pathological that they enter any situation, whether it be going into the gas station or talking to a group of people, to what can I get out of this interaction? How can I gain?
What can I get them to do?
Yeah. So cult leaders are fascinating to us because we don't understand that kind of manipulation. I think cult leaders, like I said, are pathological in it. They take 100%. It to the extreme just to see what they can do.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're going to react to Mr. Ballen's story about a cult that you've probably never heard of. I certainly had never heard of this before I watched this.
Now I'm intrigued. Have I heard of it?
You've heard of it. I've told you about it.
Oh.
But I don't think you've watched the video.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah. So here we go.
Heinous rituals that they admitted to performing. This episode is extremely graphic and very upsetting, so viewer discretion is advised.
All right, let's do it, John.
The killing hour, I don't like it. Disturbing images and statements.
In the early 1950s, Harald Alexander, who was a young stonemason living in Hamburg, Germany, came in contact with an old man named George Reel. George was the leader of a small religious group called the Lorber Society. This group, which never had a large membership at any point in their short history,
that was hard to hear. Lorber Society. I don't know if that
means anything,
or
I'm sure it does to someone.
The only German I speak is from Rammstein songs, so never heard him say Lorber.
Self-denial, which in layman's terms means to deny oneself some personal human pleasures,
so
like
it's more ascetic
sexual practices or the overindulgence of food or drinking, and all of this is done to gain favor with God. But George and the other
not unlike Catholics in the way that we were raised, and giving things up for Lent and offering up things for penance, and
so aggressively and so literally that nobody in the society could really have a life of their own. All they could do to adhere to their society's very strict rules was to worship God 24/7. In addition to their very
how do you do that?
Members of
how do you consciously
also believed that
worship something
lucid dreaming of their small society was basically evil.
So
Harold
I've never been successful at lucid dreaming.
I can't do it either.
But he does, and immediately Harold is blown away by George. He thinks he's totally incredible, he's so charismatic, and apparently George felt equally highly about Harold. And so right away they have this
cult leaders are typically very charismatic.
Drogma, they end up joining the Lorber Society, and they
how they get to where
give
they're at.
themselves over to this very intense lifestyle.
So Harold and Drogma, his wife, joined the Lorber Society.
Harold and his wife had joined this society.
George is the leader.
Their leader, George, became very ill, and it became clear he was going to die soon. When George was on his deathbed, Harold went to visit him, and after speaking with him privately in this room, Harold emerges and he tells his wife that George has told him that he is going to be the next leader of the Lorber Society.
Isn't that convenient?
And so his wife accepts this, as does the rest of the society members, and then after George actually does die, everyone in the
although
society
they were said to be close,
Harold and begins listening to him.
I don't think it was a surprise to anyone.
We don't know for sure if George really did tell Harold that he was going to be the next leader
probably
of
he
the
did.
Society,
or did the kind of thing where he was like, please, you know, if you're going to be a prominent member of this church or society, just don't steer them in the wrong direction. You know, take care of them.
A new concept to the members. He would continuously tell them that they needed to be ready for when the next prophet of God returned to the earth. Harold told his members that when this happened, one, Harold would know immediately and he would tell them, and two, whatever this prophet wanted, no matter how confusing or crazy or terrible, they had to do it without question, because this was God's will. In 1953, so roughly a year or two after Harold has taken over the Lorber Society, He and his wife, Dragma, have their second child. It's their first boy, and they name him Frank. And as soon as this child is
Not
born,
a real photo.
Harold
I think
looks
it's a
at
real
him
photo,
and
just not a real photo.
determines
Right,
that
it's
his
not a
kid,
photo
his
of
son,
Frank.
is the prophet they have all been waiting for. And so he tells his
There
wife,
it
and
is.
he tells the members of the Lorber Society that his son, Frank, is the prophet of God. And everyone across the board
convenient.
completely accepts it. As the prophet, Frank,
I would be
grew
like,
up,
I have
he was
horseshoes.
shamelessly worshipped and waited on 24/7
Can you
by the members of the
imagine
Lorber Society.
the
and his
entitlement,
family.
the spoiled, like, all I can think of is just like the child prince that
Mhm.
this kid must have been like.
By the time Frank
gross.
was in the age of grade school children, he fully believed that he was the prophet of God, and he began using that authority to kind of boss his family around more than he really needed to,
Mhm.
especially his three sisters and his mother. But no one ever intervened because, again, this is
He's the prophet of God.
and he can do whatever he wants. When Frank turned
This
16,
is a
he
kid
started
that I
thinking
instantly
about
know I want to
girls and
smack
sex,
around.
That's
but he was
him.
conflicted because he had been taught everybody outside of this society
You
he's
can
part of
tell by the
were
set of his
evil.
mouth. Like,
So
I
he
just
didn't
want to
want
slap his little
pollute
face.
himself by having sex with these evil women. And so he went to his father and told him that he wants to start having sex with his mother and his sisters in order to stay pure.
Because he
And his
can't
father,
have
Harold,
promiscuous
not
sex
only
with women,
embraced the idea,
he's going to have
encouraged
sex
it.
with his
And in fact,
family.
he would often join in with his son during the sexual intercourse. As for the four Alexander women, they completely accepted their
My
new roles
stomach
as
is more
sexual
upset than it
objects
was before.
because they
Keep
believed
it in the family, I
by doing whatever
guess.
Frank and Dragma wanted to do, they
So
were
nasty.
serving God.
Ugh,
Eventually,
I'm
one of
nasty.
the sisters began talking to some of her very few friends at school about how she was kind of jealous of her other sisters for all the attention they were getting from Frank. And so the friends kind of picked up on this strange relationship between the siblings, and before long, rumors had started about there being some incestuous relations inside of this family. That made its way to the police, and before long, Harold had discovered that the Hamburg police
That you
were
can't
about to
sleep
launch
with your
an
son, your
investigation
daughters, and
into
your
his
wife
family.
all at the same
And at
time.
the same time, Harold also
Oh,
discovered
gross.
that members of the Lorber Society, they had heard about these incest rumors as well, and they had their own suspicions already, and they were not on board with incest. And so they were very clearly starting to distance themselves from Harold.
Yeah,
and his
the
family.
worshiping God
So it was pretty
24/7,
clear to
no
Harold
problem.
that the writing was on the wall. He and his
The
family
denying
was no
yourself
longer welcome in
pleasures
Hamburg.
of
And so
all
he
kinds,
goes to the Lorber
they're fine.
Society,
But
and he kind of
incest, you
retires.
draw the
He
line.
says, I'm leaving.
I mean, at
you
least
to
they
find
have a
yourself
line that's
a new leader of this society.
better than
And then he
some,
and his family
obviously.
Than the Alexanders, I guess.
The Lorber Society. They left Hamburg and fled south to Santa Cruz, which is a city on the Canary Islands in Spain. And so they settle into this little apartment inside of this busy city, and very quickly they fell back into their old routines of constantly worshiping Frank, the prophet of God, despite the fact that
It's
they
just-
were no longer
it's
affiliated
so
with the Lorber
icky.
Society.
It's
So
icky.
their
It's
actions
so
were now
ick.
being driven by their own personal belief system. 10 months later, on December 22nd, 1970, a wealthy doctor named Walter Trankler was at his villa, which was located not far from where the Alexanders lived.
1970. So
When
this
he heard
was
a knock at
just
the
a
front
little
door,
over 50
he
years
opened
ago.
the front door
Yeah.
and saw there were these two men who he didn't recognize, who were covered head to toe in what looked like mud. And at first, he was totally taken aback by their appearance and almost wanted to just shut the door. But in order to be polite, he kept the door slightly open and said, hey, how can I help you guys? And the two men would introduce themselves as Harold and Frank Alexander.
Fuck
And they were
politeness.
there to speak
Yeah.
with one of their family members, Sabine.
And
was one
Sabine
of
worked
Frank's
for this
two younger
doctor, so they
sisters,
were there to
and she worked
get
for the
her.
doctor as a housemaid. And so the doctor, he didn't know any of Sabine's family members, so he just kind of took their request at face value and said, hold on, let me go get her. So he leaves the front
They're
door,
covered in
goes to the
blood.
kitchen,
No,
finds
no,
Sabine, this
no.
15-year-old girl, and he tells her
Well, and
that
how
your father
old
and
was
your
the
brother are
blood
waiting
that the
for you
doctor
outside.
thought
They
it
wanna
was
talk to you.
mud?
And
A
so
doctor
Sabine, without
thought it
saying a
was
word,
mud.
puts her knife and the food down.
Mhm.
She walks out of the kitchen with the doctor, and as they're walking towards the front door, the doctor stops about 10 or 15 feet away from the front door to kind of allow Sabine to walk up and have a semi-private conversation with her relatives.
But not
although they're still
private, 'cause
inside
the
this
doctor
house,
was
so they didn't
like,
want to go too far.
This
As the
thing's
doctor is
weird.
standing
This
maybe
fucked up.
15 feet, overhears the father, Harold, say something truly horrific to his daughter. It was so shocking that the doctor stopped what he was doing, turned, and looked directly at Sabine to see how she was going to react to what she just heard. But to the doctor's absolute shock, Sabine didn't break down and start crying or start screaming out in pain or anguish. Instead, she reached out and grabbed her father's muddy hand and pressed it to her cheek and said, I'm sure you did what was necessary. and then the two embraced. He just kind of blurts out, "Hey, I'll be right back, stay right there." And then the doctor turned around and darted out of the front hall into another room where he barricaded himself inside, and then he called the police. When the police showed up just a few minutes later, they rolled into the front lot, and they saw Harold, Frank, and Sabine were still just casually standing in the front doorway of the doctor's villa, seemingly not really trying to go anywhere or do anything. And so the police get out of their car, they walk up to the trio, and they say, "What's going on? What are you doing here?" And Harold, very calmly and casually, tells one of the officers the same horrible thing that the doctor overheard him saying to Sabine. Except this time, Harold specified to the officers where this horrible thing took place. He said it happened inside of their apartment. The police were shocked at Harold's candidness and the fact that his two kids were standing right next to him and they're hearing what their father is saying. They too are just totally detached, very calm, as if nothing their father is saying is having any effect on them. It's just totally business as usual. And then they just arrested Harold and his two kids. After the three Alexanders were brought to the police station, three other police officers
like more information,
to
John.
Alexander's apartment. The following is the story of what happened inside of that apartment, based on the testimony given by
I said I wanted more information.
on December
You really
21st,
I don't know that I want to know.
So that's one day before Frank and Harold arrived on the doorstep of the doctor's villa. The father and son were home in their apartment with the mother, Dragma, as well as two of the three sisters. It was 18-year-old Marina and 15-year-old Petra. The other sister, Sabine, she was over at the doctor's villa. She was staying with them for a couple of days while she worked there. At some point that afternoon, Dragma and Harold left the living room and went into one of the bedrooms to lie down and take a nap. And after they lie down, Frank, for some reason, gets up from the living room and walks into the bedroom and sits down on the edge of the bed and just stares down at his mother. And when his mother rolls over and looks up at her son, Frank would later tell police that the look she gave him was suggestive, and it was offensive to Frank, and he believed she was not.
It was suggestive, but you've been sleeping with your own mother?
Right?
Okay.
He said he instinctively knew that the killing hour was upon them. The killing hour was not a Lorber Society concept. It was something that Frank and most likely Harold had come up with, and the rest of the family, the mother and the three sisters, had totally accepted. According to Frank and Harold, women were unpure, and the only way to purify them, i.e. send them to heaven and not hell, was to murder
Leave them alone.
So it was just fundamentally understood
in
the Alexander household that at some point Frank was going to declare that the killing hour was upon them. And when that happened, all the women in the household were told to stop what they were doing and wait for Frank to sacrifice them. Meaning, wait for Frank to ritualistically kill them. So after Frank has seen this offensive look on his mother's face,
we haven't said anything in a hot minute. This is horrifying.
So he literally
it is horrifying.
to his mother and to his father, who's right next to her, and then Frank grabs a nearby wooden coat hanger and strikes his mother on the top of her head. Now, his mother, she's heard that the killing hour is upon them, and he's starting to beat her, and so what does she do? She follows the rules. She flips herself over onto her stomach, puts her hands down by her side, and lays flat and still so Frank can more easily kill her. And so Frank begins peeling the back of his mother's head with this.
I couldn't be that submissive. I don't care
who
or what. Like,
you
no.
don't say.
Doesn't try to stop what's going on. He runs into the living room and he begins very enthusiastically playing the organ. An organ is like a piano that's played a lot of times inside of Christian churches. And so with all this commotion going on in the
your
house,
kid is murdering your wife and you're out there just like Phantom of the Opera-ing the whole thing. Like he's scoring this murder.
It's Frank murdering their mother. And they're looking
Oh, God.
They're just staring at it. And then their father says to them, "The killing hour is upon us. You need to get ready." And so the girls, when they hear this, they know the rules. And so they stop watching this attack and they make their way over to the center of the living room and they sit down cross-legged and they begin
Crisscross applesauce.
After a while,
Get ready for
Frank
getting
stopped
killed.
beating his mother, who was now unconscious or perhaps dead, and he walked out of the bedroom into the living room where he saw his father on the organ and he saw his two sisters sitting on the ground. And so without any hesitation, he walks over to Marina, the older one, the 18-year-old, and he begins hitting her on the top of the head until she slouches over onto the ground motionless. And then he turns to the younger one, Petra, the 15-year-old, and he does the same thing to her until she's laying on the ground motionless. After this,
My
Frank
mouth has
stands
been
up
open for
and
way
he
too
leaves
long.
the room
I did the
cannot.
same thing.
goes
I had
to
to
the
like,
kitchen, where he
yeah.
retrieves a small knife, pruning shears, and a hammer. At this point, it's likely that one or two of the Alexander women were still alive. And so Frank, he comes back into the living room with these tools in hand, and with the organs blaring in the background, he begins to systematically hack off the breasts and genitals of his two sisters.
Jesus!
This is a very slow and
You're a fucking
difficult task.
psycho.
And so he and his father Harold began switching off. One person would be on the organs while the other was mutilating, and they would switch back and forth until all of
Oh,
the
so
bits
Dad
of
got a
body
chance to mutilate the bodies too. Okay, well that's good.
The last
Even
mutilation
Stevens, I guess.
Sharing is caring.
Ooh.
And they wrapped it up in a cord and then nailed this cord to the wall as well. Then, with the three Alexander women either dead or close to death, the father and son began running around the apartment, yelling and singing and rejoicing. They were extremely proud of what they had just done. Later that night, they left the apartment and slept in another property that they owned. And then the following day, December 22nd, they went to the doctor's villa to tell Sabine.
Oh, so they waited a day. That's why they
look like mud.
Yeah.
But how like
father says to her,
saturated in blood do you have to be that it looks like you are covered in mud?
Yeah.
Like that's what's blowing my mind. That's what it is. That's what I'm having.
Yeah, that's what you're having trouble accepting. Okay.
What the doctor saw and overheard that was so horrible
Just
and prompted him to call the police. It was also the moment when he realized that was not mud all over these two men.
Yeah.
That was their family members' blood. Psychiatrists would ultimately determine that Frank and Harold were not mentally fit.
Look at that psycho face.
They were both committed to an asylum.
Oh
because
my
he's
God.
convinced that he is a prophet of God. He's
Yeah.
convinced that he's being wrongfully prosecuted, I guess.
By saying, because of them, these three women got to go to heaven. As for the one surviving daughter, Sabine, she pleaded with authorities to let her go live with her brother and her father in this asylum.
Jail, or in an asylum.
And sent her to live in a convent.
Can you imagine how
which is a building
fucked up
that
you
nuns
have to
live in,
be?
And no one really knows what happened to her after that. Shockingly, in 1990,
I know. I can't process
years
it.
after Frank and Harold were put into this asylum,
God, he's a
managed
lunatic.
to
They
escape.
both look
They
insane.
were never caught. To this day, their whereabouts remain unknown. So that's going to do it, guys.
Well,
If you
that's
learned something from this
horrifying.
episode and
Thanks
haven't
to
done this
pant
already,
load.
please sneak in.
Because Frank would only be like 70.
No, they were never what? They
What
were never
the shit?
They were never caught? Like what? Like they were held in an asylum, pending trial,
And then let go.
and they just
And then what?
I mean, what?
I don't know.
Can you
I don't
mean
remember.
I can't
I don't remember.
I can't I can't. Well, and Sabine begging to go
live in the asylum
in the
with them?
asylum with them, like just speaks to how absolutely brainwashed that whole family was.
Yeah, just I cannot imagine being so convinced of
someone else's deification, I guess. Like
that you would literally just sit in the middle of the room on the floor and wait your turn
and
to
wait
be
to
massacred.
be murdered.
Like what?
This horrifies me. This story, and I've seen this before, and it's been a while, so I forgot some of the specifics, but like this story absolutely terrifies me to my core.
Yeah, this is traumatizing. Thanks, a pant load.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
We'll watch something funny for the next one, maybe.
I just like what the shit. Well, I'm sorry, and I love you, and I think you're wonderful.
But ain't no way in
I would never fucking
hell
believe that you were a prophet of the Lord and I needed to sit still while you beat the shit out of me until I'm dead. Like, what?
And then you might still be alive. Well, I hacked off your breasts and genitals.
Right?
With gardening shears.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was flat out insanity. I
Yeah.
don't know that we're gonna have to watch something funny or fun or
I need fluff.
or
I need fluff in my life.
to take a shot of whiskey or something. I don't know. Like this is thanks, Mr. Ballen. Thanks. Didn't know we needed to know that, and now we know it, and we can't ever unknow it. So hooray.
Crying game shower.
Jesus Christ.
That's horrifying.
All right. Oh,
I have to go barf now.
Yeah.
What the fuck did we just watch?
What the fuck did we just watch?
What kind of person do you have to be? And I understand it's a vulnerable person, right?
Mhm.
That you buy into this horse shit. I'm having trouble formulating words because this is just so beyond.
I think it goes down to a need for acceptance,
sense of belonging, and I mean, where do you get your first sense of belonging? It's from your family, right?
And I
get that
these girls and the mother, because this was their life from the time that Frank was born, and you know he was decided to be like a prophet of God. I think that they just. That's all they knew.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying and sad. So sad.
Very sad. Very sad.
So sad.
Very disturbing. Like and subscribe, Mr. Ballen.
Oh,
his stories are always
good.
good.
And
some of them are funnier and some of them are wackier. He does like he'll do alien like UFO sightings.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, he'll do some silly stuff.
His Mad Trapper one. I love the Mad Trapper.
Watch the Mad Trapper one. But yeah, he'll do like missing persons cases. He'll do something
mysterious
paranormal
deaths.
Yeah, the strange, dark, and unusual, as he says.
What he does.
That's what he specializes in.
They're all good. He's a great storyteller. So like and subscribe his stuff. Hit the bell. Get his notifications. Always a good time.
Yeah, I will put the link for this video in the description box, as I said, but proceed with caution. I mean, I think you can tell by our reactions that, like, I'm pretty speechless.
I feel icky.
Yeah, no, that's horrific and like one of the most awful things I can imagine, and I can imagine an awful lot.
A great imagination.
Yeah, so I don't know that the next reaction that we do is going to be serious. I think we need to do something silly because this left a stain. Like
scarred for life.
I feel tainted. Like, but that being said, thanks for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed the story and the reactions that we did, because we did make some faces. But on
that note,
like, subscribe, stick around for next week. Bye.
Bye.